Maybe.
Scott, I realized I gave you SJ rather than Scott, which you always type out nicely. So okay, all right. I thought for some reason that's
started doing that just because I think
just to keep it. Yeah.
In fact, I can just do it just to do it. I'll do it.
Why not?
Totally fun. Scott.
Oh,
you like Scott's spot? I'm assuming you've watched Scott Pilgrim says was it versus the
I
World?
still haven't seen that movie because I'm lame.
I haven't seen it either. So
it's really just
I'm lame too.
It's just a movie with a lot of Torontoan jokes.
I read the jokes. I read the comics all the way through twice, so I know the material. I just never got around to the movie.
I don't even know who's in it.
It has what's his name?
Michael.
The nerdy guy.
Oh,
guy from Arrested Development.
Yes. Why can't I think of his name?
Sean Blake, Tim Thomerson. Nope.
I
can see
Michael Cera.
Michael Cera.
There you go. There you go.
There's a Michael in there.
I do sometimes when there's a name, it's a proper noun or something. I do sometimes go through the alphabet like and every once in a while I'll get it right because it's like I've got that first letter and it triggers something that I couldn't remember before. It's very weird.
That is weird. I love it though. Ow. Man, I did something to my fingernail that will not heal.
Oh no! Did you? Is it? You know what? Have you gone to the doctor? They might have to pull off the nail.
No.
Ooh, gosh.
And that escalated quickly.
I know. Roger was very concerned.
No, you see, like my nail right here. Let's see if I'll focus in on it. Is a split, like down that little mark. That split's been there since college when I was playing. I was a very serious Street Fighter 2 player.
Yeah.
I split it by hitting, like I was trying to do a fireball with Ken or Ryu, and I hit it too hard and it split it down.
That's amazing.
And it's
and
never
it just
really healed. Never really healed.
Huh.
So I blame Street Fighter 2 on that.
Wow. Well, you guys take care of your hands, please.
Yeah. Mine's just hurts and I don't know why. There's no visible anything. It just feels like I did something dumb to it.
If you have a cut and then you get citrus juice or something on it, it might hurt.
Yeah, or hot sauce, or
maybe
all the things that.
I get scurvy, or I have the blight.
Scurvy, lack of vitamin C, hair falls out, teeth falls out.
Yeah, eat your oranges.
Yeah, if you do the blight though, it's just lack of potatoes.
Is it?
Potatoes. I don't think the blight was an actual disease. I think it was just a lack, like a drought of potatoes.
Yeah, like just a lot of potato fungus.
Yeah. Oh, it was a lot. Maybe it was a lot of that. Yeah. But I always tell my kids that their French fries have the blight just to irritate them.
Well, it's a good thing there's no nutritional value in French fries anyway. So
that's true. They fill you
There's
up.
probably something in there, right?
Yeah, you need your starches, right? A little bit.
Carbs. Yeah. You need your carbs.
Yeah.
Speaking of what we need to start the show. So
let's
Tom,
do it.
You start your record. You count down, start record, and then Sarah can do the.
Okay. That sounds perfect. Okay, so doing the intro thing, right? Okay, cool. All right, here we go. Let's start it in 3, 2, 1.
Mason Moody has supported independent tech news directly for 5 years. Be like Mason. Become a DTNS member at patreon.com/DTNS. This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, March 6th, 2019. Tom Merritt is off today, but from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
From Salt Lake City, Utah, I am Scott Johnson.
And from a very wet LA County area, I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
Yes, it is wet here. I don't know if it's been raining in Salt Lake City as much as it has in Los Angeles, Scott, but I feel like we're in bizarro world.
It's normally snow, but because March is here, we start to get really uneven with that. Like February is the worst month, and right now it isn't. So whatever rain you have will probably end up here, and then we'll send it to Colorado. They'll get snow. It just gets worse from there. So thanks a lot, Los Angeles. You've done this.
Yeah. We are sorry in advance. What we're not sorry for, though, is a great tech news show coming up. And let's start with a few tech things you should know.
All right, well, let's get right to it. Reuters reports that Banxico, the Central Bank of Mexico, that's right, Banxico, always drives me
cool.
Is working with Amazon on a new government-backed payment system. The system will be called CODI, or CODI, and allow users to make in-person and online payments via QR codes. More than half the population doesn't have a bank account, and only 3.9% of retail sales were made online in 2018 in that country.
Incentivizing more bank accounts. Uber will not face criminal charges for a fatal crash involving one of its self-driving cars. Prosecutors have ruled that the company is not criminally liable for the death of Elaine Hertzberg, she was 49, who was struck as she crossed a road in Tempe, Arizona.
Also, according to the internal Apple document obtained by Mac Rumors, they always end up with these. Someone's got friends on the inside over there. Anyway, the company will now allow devices with batteries installed by third parties to be eligible for Genius Bar and other authorized repairs. Previous Apple guidelines called for denying service to devices with third-party batteries, regardless of those circumstances. I think that's actually kind of a big deal. A lot of people do go get the third-party cheaper thing, and the fact that they can now go into Apple and get a better one
and not be turned away, for saving a few bucks.
Sure, I think that's great.
It's goodwill. There's probably some other reasons there too. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the foldable phones that will not die, Scott.
Guess what, everybody? It's 2019. Everybody has a freaking foldable phone these days, or they don't have a phone yet, but everybody wants you to have one. Bloomberg's Sam Kim reports that Samsung is working on 2 new foldable phones. So if you thought that one they just released wasn't enough, this is according to sources within the company. The company plans to roll out a vertical clamshell foldable by late 2019 or early 2020. That would be my bet. Possibly with a second screen on the outside of the device when it is folded, which kind of ruins the idea of folding it. But anyway, an outward folding device similar to Huawei's Mate X design, which we have had a look at, would follow. The company will reportedly include an in-screen fingerprint reader and is still working on improving the durability of the foldable panels. I'd said this last week, and I would reiterate it again. These things need some iteration before I'm going to trust them. And it's nothing about Samsung or anybody else making a foldable phone. It's that fold I'm concerned about. And with a lot of use, I just can't see that holding up yet. So it's the second and third generation of these that I'm most interested in. And it sounds like we may get some of that before the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's starting to feel like Groundhog Day when I see these stories, because I'm like, wait a second, didn't we just talk about Samsung's foldable phone? Oh, these are more foldable phones that are being worked on that might have different form factors. And yeah, I tend to sort of laugh about the whole thing because it's all still so conceptual. Because you or I or Roger or Tom or anybody, you haven't had a year to be like, oh, here's why it was really great. Here's why I changed the way that I did things. Here's what didn't work. You mentioned having a display on the outside of a folded device. Like, does that really, is that a form factor that you're going to figure out later on is really helpful, even though it seems perhaps silly now?
Well, and that's the other issue, especially given the price. Nobody knows what the killer application is for this, if there is one. And so they can show me all the neat little videos of a game that's vertical, suddenly getting larger right in the middle of the game. That's great. But that's going to last me 3 or 4 seconds of I'm impressed before I need to know what this is really going to do for me down the road. Yeah. I hopes for this, but not at $1,500. So I hope they quickly get smaller, flatter, more durable, and cheaper.
I want the clamshell design to actually look like a clamshell. That's what I want. That's what I want in my foldable phone. Let's make them stylish again, people. At the 2019 TensorFlow Dev Summit today, Google announced a bunch of TensorFlow stuff. A new open source TensorFlow privacy module was kind of the big one for its machine learning framework. Developers can now add just a few lines of code and improve the privacy of their AI models. TensorFlow is a very popular developer tool. I think it turned about 3 years old back in November. Millions of folks are in there developing, or it has been installed certainly millions of times for building machine learning applications to create programs like text or audio or image recognition algorithms. Google's TensorFlow privacy will add what they call differential privacy to help safeguard users' data, which is a kind of complex, at least to me, mathematical approach that means that AI models trained on user data can't encode personally identifiable information because that gets dangerous. Google already uses it for a number of its own AI features, like Gmail's Smart Reply. Aha, got it. Google also debuted TensorFlow Federated, or TFF, which is supposed to make it easier to experiment with machine learning and other computations on decentralized data. And the company also announced the TensorFlow 2.0 Alpha, or gave some hints of what was coming, with a glimpse of upcoming changes aimed at making machine learning easier for beginners. That would be me.
Well, that's going to be the next big step, I think, is them codifying these concepts in such a way that people can use them in more common circumstances. So having a class in a high school that's focused on traditional computer science would love probably to have an entire course on machine learning and what that is. If they can make that easy and accessible for that environment, that's a good thing for not only education now, but the future of the technology and where it goes and interest in it and that sort of thing. But moreover, it will be tricky to find all the practical applications for this without easy tools and simple methods to try to implement it and to experiment and to mess around. And I'm glad you brought up the Gmail integration, because there's a good example of a regular thing we use all the time. Gmail is constantly telling me what I want to reply with, and I sort of have to make a decision if I want to do that or not. Sometimes it's not great, but it's a start, and I think that's really good. This is an important step, I guess I should say, because outside of this, it's very abstract and complicated, and nobody's got their finger exactly on what the future of AI and machine learning is. So I think this is a good thing that Google's doing, and I hope that others in this field follow.
Agreed.
Google is testing, speaking of Google, ads. That's right. They still make a lot of money from ads, everybody. They want to do shoppable ads on Google image searches. The search giant will place related sponsored ads within image search results. The ads will feature a price tag, little icon on the lower right of the image. A user can then hover over the image and see what item is for sale in the image along with the price. Currently, the test is a small percentage of traffic with a select retailers is all they're going to start with. Surfacing on brand queries like home office ideas, shower tile designs, and abstract art. Here's how I foresee this as a possibility for people like me. If you're a independent artist and creator and you're putting work out there, a lot of times what happens, especially if your stuff memes out a little bit, people start spreading it around. They take your name off, it gets cropped for whatever reason. Sites will post it without your permission. They end up getting filtered back into the image search on Google. And I'll sometimes run into my own work and go, oh my gosh, there's that print I made. My name's nowhere on that, and no one has any idea that it's mine, but people are using it for their blogs and their whatever. It'd be kind of cool if when those results came up, one of the cool things you could do with an in-image ad would be purchase a 12 by 18 inch version of this print, for example. And suddenly artists are getting attribution. There's probably a long distance between what I'm saying and what's actually possible, even with this test. But I would like to see it be more than just, oh, you're searching for stuff in the home office. How'd you feel about a new fax machine? That's great and all. But I love the idea of more attribution, people getting credit, and then maybe even getting, some money for that.
Yeah, but when I first read the story, I was like, "Oh man, don't screw up my Google image searches. They're the wild west of image searches, and that's how I like them." However, that's also a reason that if I am searching for a new lamp, let's say something that it could be purchased somewhere, I'm not doing that within Google. I might be at Amazon, but I might be at Pinterest. I frequent Houzz, Houzz, all the time for home stuff that I usually can't afford, but they have a very nice integrated way that you can click into some images, not all of them, to be able to figure out where the retailer is, where you could buy this particular item. So if there was more of that in Google image search, I would use it for that reason more, because most of the time that's not what I would use image search for. Although, Roger, you did mention that is actually something that could be helpful when you're looking for something that's a home improvement project, for example, and you actually want to make sure you've got the image right.
So, what I was thinking, like, for one of the things that I often do an image search for is a part, or if I see instructions on how to do, like, hey, to fix your door hinge, you're going to need blah, 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 in this tool. Oftentimes they won't include an image. I'll do an image search for whatever tool, and you get, like, this is what the tool is. it could very well be as something where it's like a Home Depot or Lowe's, integrated ad where like, oh, you can buy this, torque wrench for $50 at this store, or you can buy it off Amazon. The only problem and the only fear I have is some of these ads start displacing actual legitimate image search results, so they're not at the top, but rather all the way at the bottom, and then you're just constantly scrolling through.
Yeah,
right.
Making sure
that's an issue for me as well, but it also is maybe not a bigger, well, maybe a bigger issue for me is I use Google image searches for references. It's like I need to quickly go. I need somebody doing a backflip. I need an image reference to draw this. There's a guy doing it, and I'll use it for a minute, and then it'll go away. I may have a weird use case, and maybe Google's never really known what to do with image search, and they're finally finding a way to use it. So I may have to change my way of thinking about what image search is actually for. But I'd be at least curious to see where this goes.
Well, in Alphabet news anyway, Waymo announced a Medium post. He didn't announce a Medium post. Those already exist. Waymo will start selling its LiDAR sensors to companies outside of the self-driving automobile market with an initial focus on security, robotics, and agriculture. The money earned from sales would help the company lower the unit price of the sensors through economies of scale. Although the company has developed several models of LiDAR, it would only be selling the Laser Bear Honeycomb version. It's a short-range sensor with a 95-degree vertical field of view and a 360-degree horizontal field of view, a minimum range of 0, meaning that it can see things right in front of it, and features multiple returns per pulse. Interested parties should visit the Waymo website.
I, as I said earlier off air, think this is really cool because everybody always wants to focus on what's the end game for automated cars and stuff like that and driving. And we always think it's going to be some company like Tesla or somebody who invests millions in these top to bottom solutions. It's a car. Takes you everywhere. You never drive it. That's the ultimate goal. And I get it. And that's great. And there's a bunch of companies working on that. But what I've seen very little of is companies working on smaller, more modular plug-in solutions. And I don't mean that this solution is going to make my car drive itself. Obviously not. But it is a piece of that and perhaps a stepping stone toward the car itself being a much smarter, quote unquote, ecosystem or device. And I could see a future where things are much more modular. There's a lot of safety questions in that, and we haven't answered those yet. And we're not going to be able to today, obviously. But I like the idea that the choices may not be I'm getting this brand car. It might be I'm getting their chassis, their engine, and their navigation system. And kind of building your own kind of setup, or at the very least having more control over what you've got if you own these self-driving cars. If it's more of a fleet situation, if none of us are even owning cars in 50 years, well, then we can have a different conversation about it. But I like this modular idea a lot.
Well, what's interesting is in many ways it's kind of how cars are built with all the extra features that you get today. For example, the whole radar brake assist, like, oh, the car will automatically brake for you if you get too close to the car in front of you if you buy this option. It's one of those things that was developed by a company and then just sold to Ford, BMW, or whatever, and they would develop or they would license the technology so the company could then build its own version to integrate with their automobile. I think you're right. I don't think the future will be a Tesla. Tesla will definitely be part of the future, but I don't think it will be the future. It's going to be a technology from a company. For example, I forgot his name, but there was one individual who developed the intermittent wiper that everyone has on their car, right? It's the wiper mode that intermittently does it every 2 seconds or every 4 seconds or whatever. He developed the original circuit for that, and a bunch of cars supposedly ripped them off, and car companies ripped off and developed it. But the idea is that one guy developed it, and then that technology kind of spread across the industry. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing. I think you're going to see the same thing with electric vehicles, where it's going to be the one company that develops the really amazing storage technology that allows you to, cram 100+ miles into an average size sedan on electric power. And then, they're going to license it, and everyone's going to license it and put it in their automobile. And that's where you get the economies of scale, where you can have literally not just thousands, but hundreds of thousands of automobiles. And with the sensor, what they plan to do is essentially just, get it to the point where they can sell it at a much cheaper cost because they're selling it to everyone.
Right. I think I agree with that. I think that's, I mean, why wouldn't it follow that path? That's how most products end up in our hands, is this kind of iterative, added onto, licensed out, broken apart, rethought sort of process. Nobody's going to arrive at my house with a package with a bow on it that says, here's your self-driving car with every piece of functionality we could ever want. Congratulations. It doesn't work that way. And whether it's something like we talked about earlier with foldable phones, or it's, you know, getting much closer to automated driving, it's going to take a bunch of iteration, mistakes, failures, and hopefully a few successes before we get it.
Well, Laser Bear Honeycomb is a cool name, that's for sure. Hey, to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. In fact, you'll hear my voice on the headline show tomorrow. All right, so this is our discussion for the day, and it's all about good and bad companies, or at least how they're perceived by people in the US. Axios wrote up, it was actually a poll between Harris Poll and Axios in conjunction with each other of US adults. Facebook's sort of fall from grace was the big headline, but the way that the Axios Harris Poll works is that it ranks the reputations of the most visible companies in the US. So the survey is conducted among almost 20,000 Americans. It's a two-step process. First, it surveys the public's top-of-mind awareness of companies who are seen of some range of good or bad in society, or somewhere in between. Then these most visible companies are then ranked by a second group of Americans to figure out their actual ranking, 1 being the best and 100 being the worst. If a company isn't on the list, then it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good or bad company. It just means that it did not have a critical enough level of visibility to be measured in this poll. So of those companies, they weren't all tech companies, but a lot of them were. And again, like I mentioned, Facebook got a lot of attention, but there are some very interesting data points in here. For example, Amazon held the number 2 spots of companies kind of doing the best as far as the public perceived them. Wegmans was number 1, grocery chain. Samsung was at number 7, Microsoft at number 9. There's also fastest rising and falling reputation areas. This isn't for 2019. Samsung climbed from number 35 to number 7. So yeah, Samsung's had a good year since we did this last. Netflix and Apple both saw small declines, but they're kind of hovering in the 20s. Facebook, though, fell from number 51 to number 94, which is a very large drop for any company. Now, of course, Facebook is Facebook and has had quite a bit of issues, certainly in the public eye. It's a long laundry list of issues that folks have, whether it's, distrust, or, are you swinging elections, and what are you doing with their data? And we've talked about that ad nauseum, but even so, it's a very steep decline. Tesla, by the way, also fell from number 3, which is pretty high, to number 42. So it's interesting the way that these social shifts happen quite quickly and sometimes quite dramatically.
Well, same thing with Tesla, right? Like they've had similar scrutiny, not the same scrutiny as Facebook. It's a different market, obviously, but Elon Musk likes to say a bunch of wacky stuff online. It affects stock prices. Things get weird with public companies. He complains about that. You could see that starting to erode into people's perception of what Tesla was before all of that, which was this amazing, pristine product that only a genius could come up. They had that whole shroud, and this is that shroud being pulled away a little bit. The Facebook one, I feel like, has been brewing for years and, has been a little bit strange. But I would actually like to remark that Samsung's climb from 35 to 7 is pretty remarkable, considering the Note 7 nightmare that they went through, and seemingly, at least according to this data, have come out okay. And that really,
or at least it just took some time, right, to gain the trust back of at least these people polled in the US.
Well, I think it does underscore the fact that memories can be short, especially when there are a lot of other companies that can fall on their face just as rapidly as you do. One example is Microsoft. I mean, Microsoft, for those who might not be familiar with the company was the subject of a lot of scorn and on public anger back in the early 2000s, all the way up into the late 2000s. And in the Harris poll that they did in 2011, Microsoft polled in at 16. Now 9, going up to 9 now, I mean, it's not a huge jump, but it's still a significant shift for the company. And a lot of that has to do with the way the company is now perceived, especially with the way the company's been captained by Satya Nadella, and kind of the shifts in the way the company does its business away from a OS-centric our way or the highway kind of attitude versus more of a collaborative. And they still might be, the most obnoxious bean counters on the planet that want to nickel and dime you for everything you have. But the public face that they give is definitely more palatable than it was 15 years ago.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it does also, it's just a nice little reminder that public perception, especially in companies who deal with public facing products, Facebook is the perfect example of this, but I would throw Twitter in there and others. They are always just one controversy away from dropping 50 spots on this list. Like,
right.
In Facebook's case, I almost said fake book. That's not good. In their case,
you wouldn't be the first person to do
Freudian slip.
Tripped on that one. I'll just let that lay over there on the floor where I tripped on it. But the scrutiny they've had is on such a higher level. Like, they've been in front of Congress. They've been in front of EU Parliament. They've had to lay bare all of their practices. And in the cases where they forgot about something, either innocently or not, then they're getting after, they're being got after again because they forgot to disclose a thing. Like, their level of scrutiny is magnifying lens on an anthill. When I was 5, it was all about just killing as many ants as I could. And I feel like Facebook's they're not going to go up on this list very quickly. So there may be a weird example, but I think any of these companies could, at any given time, just slip up, slip down.
And also, you might look at this and say, well, Amazon's doing great. Number 2 behind a beloved grocery chain. Okay, well, are you comparing Netflix and Amazon? And if so, is it original Amazon Video that you would compare to Netflix? So there are so many data points in here that these two companies, it's not sort of like Microsoft and Apple, which one's better? Because the reason that people might be happy or displeased with a company, it could be for a lot of reasons, depending on how big the company is and what they offer.
And I think there's a certain level of how much competition does a company have for public opinion to really sway their business decisions, right? Facebook doesn't have an immediate, competitor that does everything it does. There's companies that do bits of what it does, but not in the same scale that Facebook does. So there's a level of,
it has more opportunities to screw up.
Well, some would say kind of an insufferable attitude that, well, you know what, we're still the only player in town, so people are invariably going to come around to us, even if not directly. And so, you see it with other companies that have, for the longest time, like, AT&T, when it was Ma Bell, it was like, well, we dropped your call. We're sorry. But guess what? We're the phone company. We are the phone company. There are no other phone companies. If you need to use the phone, you're going to use it with us. So, yeah, we're upset. We're sorry you're upset, but it doesn't really matter to us. It's only then when you had competition where you kind of lit a fire under their corporate behinds, where they started, at least publicly, tried to change their direction as well as their attitude toward the customers, not looking them like more of a just kind of a fiefdom, but more as customers that they need to keep happy.
Yeah.
Related to everything that we're talking about here, is a story today from The Guardian that Whole Foods had cut workers' hours after Amazon, which owns Whole Foods, introduced a new minimum wage, which was $15. And in certain cases for management, it was a little bit higher. But if you were making $15 and you worked at Whole Foods, then you became a $15 minimum wage. However, workers have complained of now having fewer hours, even though the overall budget for these stores in some cases really haven't changed. And they say, well, this wipes out our raises altogether. If I was working 40 hours a week and now I get more per hour and I'm only working 32 hours, this kind of screws us up. And I think that this is a perfect example of something that if that gets enough traction, people will start saying, oh, Whole Foods is bad to their employees. Whole Foods is a bad company, and will that dock Amazon when we look at this poll next year?
Yeah, I think that's very possible. Like on the one hand, well, whether it's true or not, the perception will be Amazon swooped in, created a minimum wage that is a living wage, and that's good. And that seems like a good company practice, but then sneakily, reduced everybody's hours, nullifying the good. Whether or not that's actually true, it may not matter in cases like this because we're really just talking about perception. I noticed that Chick-fil-A was number 4 last year, number 22 this year. That's still pretty good chicken. I don't know what's going on over there, but the chicken's good.
It's because they closed their local branch near me and people were mad.
Oh, all right.
I wish I'd been polled. I always wonder, why don't I get polled on things like this? I would love to be part of a poll like this. Never happens. Hey, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. It's a poll of sorts of its own. You could submit stories and vote on others at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow is where to hang out with us on Facebook if that's your bag. Speaking of bags, back to Amazon now. We got an email from Kevin who said, I just placed my first Amazon order and chose Amazon Day for delivery. It felt good for a couple of reasons. Number one, I would have likely been in the mountains skiing on Thursday on the expected 2-day delivery date. 2, I feel like in the future, I can help reduce a lot of waste when there are products with different delivery dates. I don't think I would have even noticed that this was a new option had you guys not mentioned it, because I'm usually pretty automatic with my orders. Search, add to cart, hit order, close browser. Something did occur to me, however. This will likely be saving Amazon a ton over the long haul. They should really give customers some sort of a price reduction for using this.
Yeah. Amazon doesn't seem to be.
Don't hold your breath.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath either. We got another email from our boss, Chip, from snowy Boston.
Hey, Chip.
Yeah, go Celtics, I guess. I was trying to think of a good team to back today. I was listening to your conversation yesterday about the Ordine stove and how its space-saving design would be great for small kitchens, and it hit me. I've seen this before. A few years back, I toured Kentuck Knob, a Frank Lloyd Wright house built in the early 50s. And part of the tour, we went through the house's small kitchen, which had many space-saving innovations, including a fold-down stove. He's got some pictures he sent with this. The electric stove was a Frigidaire product from the same time period. It allowed you to fold down the 4 burners in one at a time, so it only took up as much space as you needed on the counter. The benefit this 60-plus-year-old product had over the Ordine was the burners were detachable, so you could take one or more with you to the dining room or outside to keep food warm. That's kind of rad. Obviously, the Ordine is much more. Is it Ordine or Ordine? I hope I'm saying it right. Or we'll say Ordine. Obviously, the
Ordine on Monday. Yeah.
All right, cool. Much more modern tech, but the space-saving concept is the same. I always wondered why the design never caught on. Hopefully, now with the advent of injunction cooktops, it may. Love the show. Keep up the great work. Your boss, Chip, from snowy Boston.
Yeah, Chip's. I loved those photos you sent, Chip. They're so cool. Wherever that house is, I would like a tour as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks to Kevin, thanks Chip, thanks to everybody who sends us feedback. We love you. Keep it coming. Also, thanks to Scott Johnson for helping Roger and I hold down the fort today. Scott, what else is going on in your world?
Well, it's been my pleasure. Hope Tom's having a safe trip. And I would just say, if you are interested in anything I have going on these days, there are 2 places to go, really. The first is frogpants.com. Everything I do is there. If you're looking for art, if you're looking for our store, if you're looking for podcasts, it's all right there. And to follow me on the daily, you can see me at Twitter on Twitter at Scott Johnson.
That'd be a great handle. Yeah, you could just add me at Twitter. That's me. Well, thanks for being with us, Scott. Our goal each month, as you know, patrons, is to get one more patron than we had last month. You could be that person. Maybe you're on the fence. Maybe it's time to check out our Patreon and see what all the great perks we have there. You can become a DTNS member and get an ad-free RSS feed. Also special episodes from Tom on how we make the sausage. Special episodes looking back on tech news of the past and lots more. You can sign up at patreon.com/DTNS. We also have a store. Want to mention that too. dailytechnewsshow.com/store. Our email address, as I mentioned, feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're also live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 21:30 UTC. You can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. Tom's back from Austin, Texas tomorrow. We'll also have Justin Robert Young and David Sparks. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more shows like this at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Sure did.
We did it.
Chat.
Awesome.
Showbot. Good work, all.
Yeah, I think we do pretty good job. You'd think we'd be all stressed out and nervous. Just, it's Tom's baby. I don't want to screw this thing up, but it always goes well. So,
Kentucky Knob. Where is this house located? Oh, it's in Pennsylvania. Chalk Hill, Pennsylvania.
That's where all the vampires are. Pennsylvania.
Oh. I do a good vampire. What can I say?
Pretty good.
Well, I want to go to Transylvania.
Yeah.
In Romania?
It's in Romania. It's a state.
Province, it's a region.
It's a region. Yeah, it's a Romanian region.
They've tried to make it a little more touristy. I think they added a theme park.
Oh, really? Well, that's not why I would go.
Stuff in the thing?
Well, I mean, they're trading off the whole Transylvania, Dracula and all that stuff.
Yeah. Mason.
Sorry, that's you.
Hey, Mason. Just wanted to shout you out. Yeah, I don't know. I've never been to any part of Romania, so that's just if I haven't been to a place, I'd like to go. Why not?
I've only met 5 Romanians in my life.
How do you know that so quickly?
Because 2 of them were at state. One of them was a guest, or was connected to a guest on Call for Help. And then the other 2
well,
were...
what if you met a Romanian and didn't know it?
That's true. There's 5 Romanians I know I've met.
Secret Romanians.
Ooh.
I don't know.
Indie
I can't think of, and I know I'm just probably blanking. I can't think of any friend who's... I don't know. Yeah. No, are you saying just of Romanian descent or...
Like Romanian,
grew up there?
Yeah, talked with Romanian accent.
Yeah. I can't think of any.
One was
Come forth, Romanians. Show yourselves.
Oh, strike it rich. So go to showbot.chatroom.net and vote on your titles. We have
from
of course,
Facebook to Faceplant.
That's a good one.
Like that one.
Be like Mason. Thanks, Mason. Adding to the fold. Adding to the fold. Waymo sensors.
I like Waymo sensors. I see what you did there, Mojam.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Oh, Mojam has a good one. Your reputation precedes you.
Oh,
ooh, that's a good one.
That fits right into our thing.
It does. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna vote for.
I voted for that as well.
Okay. All right.
Hey, so reputation precedes you.
Done.
Yeah.
Done and done.
Feels fitting.
So do you think they're going to be mad that I didn't take my car to the car wash right before I turned it in?
Do they ding you for that?
It's raining though. Just tell them it rained, and what are you going to do?
Well, but it's the inside, really. Oh. That's it's the outside. They can just hose it down. But
not a rental car. They can deal with it.
They can deal with it. Yeah, I'm sure they'll find a reason to tell me that they had to get a special wash because I didn't. But nobody said anything like, "Oh, you need to return it."
If it's not part of the
condition,
if it's not part of the lease, you must have this. When you rent a car, it says you need to have at least 3/4 of a tank full.
Sure, yeah, right.
If it doesn't say that, it's well, whatever. It's not damage; it's just dirty.
Well, and exactly, and I've had the car for 3 years. It's it's not like I've had plenty of time for a little wear and tear in there. Not that it's in bad shape, but it's just, it's a little dusty, dog blanket in the back type thing. But yeah, they have a return fee that I don't remember hearing about until very recently. And so it's like, let's call the cleaning fee part of that, because it's not an insignificant amount of money.
A return fee? Like, is this because of your situation, or that's what they do for every lease?
I don't, no. It's just it's standard. What they do is when your lease is up, and I don't know if all car companies are the same, but for my particular lease, what they say is like, and then there's the return fee, which of course we'll waive if you get into another lease, even though it's like another 3-year lease is so much more money than like just paying that return fee if that's not what I want to do. So they like barely incentivize you to just stick with them by waiving, things that seem like nice fees, but probably don't matter very much. It's all a big racket. Cars suck.
Cars are rackets. I hate it.
True.
We were promised jetpacks. Where is it?
Yeah,
they make them. They just don't last very long, and they burn your backsides if you're not careful.
Yeah, I know. They're just not ready. Get Waymo in the case. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
Waymo case. I don't know. I always thought about leasing a car, but the thing is, I do a lot of unpredictable things with my car, so I don't think I would be a good lease person.
And see, I'm the opposite, because I have a hard time committing to anything. I'm a very non-committal car person. So the whole kind of like, well, you're basically just renting a car and, it's never going to be your car. That works for me, because then I'm only committing to a couple of years at a time. I don't know. It has worked for me in the past. We'll see how it works in the future. Because when I owned my cars over the years, sometimes I had them long enough to pay them off. And then I was like, wow. And then it's just my car. That's nice. Huh. Been a while since I felt that way.
I bought a certified used Camry because I wanted something that was cheap-ish and relatively low cost on the insurance and maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
And I managed to find one with only 11,000 miles on it.
Yeah. I mean, that's... The used car never bothered me at all. I don't care. I don't care who was in this car before me. As long as it's in good shape, low mileage, and works. I
remember my friend saying, "It's like, I hate used cars." It's like, why? It's like, well, how do you know like someone didn't die in it? It's like, so what? It's not like they're gonna haunt the car.
Well,
hauntings aren't real.
Maybe in Transylvania you'd have a problem, but no. Yeah, I feel the same way of when people say, what if, somebody died in this house that we're thinking of buying. It just doesn't, I don't know. If I wasn't there,
I don't
know how much
house.
I would care that might have happened.
For someone that's passed.
there's a big possibility that, the older your house is, like, someone probably died in it at some point.
I mean, as long as it was peaceful, it wasn't like something shady or anything like that.
But even if it was, it really does. Unless you're just kind of superstitious, it still shouldn't matter if you like the house.
Some people are, though. Like, oh, you built your house.
It means that all die badly.
It just means
it works that way.
Where it happened and why. Like if somebody got shot or was a murder-suicide or something, you'd probably want to not know where it happened, because every time you'd walk into that room or a bedroom,
it's true. It's true. If I was facing something like that, maybe it would bother me more than I think
about it.
Yeah.
But unless you're super superstitious or something, I mean, if I got the right deal on the house, it wouldn't stop me from buying the house.
Just burn the room, have a priest come in and bless it, and we're set.
Done.
I watched Poltergeist. I know. As long as the headstones, it's not just the headstones, we're all set.
Is that the story with Poltergeist? I don't really remember.
They built the housing project, which is actually not too far away from me. They built that housing project on sacred, like it was a cemetery, but they didn't exhume the caskets. They just took the tombs or the headstones off and built everything on top.
Well, that's poor form for sure. I'd be mad too if I was a ghost.
I mean, Sarah knows at least a quarter of San Francisco is built on reclaimed cemetery.
Yeah.
They moved all those bodies to South San Francisco or Colma, mostly Colma.
I don't really know where South San Francisco ends and Colma begins. That area is all it's
weird.
Yeah, it's
basically as soon as you start
lovely,
hitting the cemeteries
well.
and you hit like the one casino nestled between the cemeteries, that's Colma.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually knew somebody who was a card dealer at that casino.
Really?
He was a strange person. And for lots of reasons. The card dealing part was the least strange thing about him. But yeah, that's where he worked. And he always had weird stories. This is a long time ago. This was like when I was in college. So
he was pestering you about deals. I can make a good deal for you.
No, he was just a weirdo. He was just a weird man who worked at the Colma Casino.
When I go home, the only people accompanying me on my commute are dead people. Bodies. Yep. Although a couple of the old victims from the OK Corral are supposedly buried, like Doc Holliday or something out there.
Oh, yeah. That'd be fun to go see just for that.
Yeah, but it's just a tombstone and supposedly his remains.
You know, I don't know how we all feel about cemeteries, and not all cemeteries are created equal, obviously, but there's some like in Eva Perón's cemetery, Recoleta Cemetery in Buenos Aires. I've been there, and it's like one of the most beautiful things you've ever seen. Not just her kind of, it's a huge tomb thing, but just the whole thing. Tourist attraction in its own way, but it's like, wow. I mean, it was like one of my favorite parts of my time there. Then there's other cemeteries where you're like, yeah, I'm not liking this. I don't want to hang out here.
Yeah, the cemeteries in New Orleans are like this. They're just breathtakingly beautiful in the daytime.
Yeah.
At night, I'd rather be anywhere but there.
Yeah.
Like they're
right. Yeah. It's too good, too gothic and kind of, yeah.
Well, if it's
all the right notes.
If it's a proper cemetery, that means eventually have fog run over it, and it'll just be super creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, not that I'm hanging out in cemeteries all the time, but Père Lachaise in Paris, where Jim Morrison is buried, among many other people.
Is that still like frequented? Like that used to be a big.
So I only went there once, to the cemetery anyway, and it was in the winter and it was cold and I was alone. I just really wanted to go, and I don't even remember who I was with, but they didn't want to go. And so I was like, all right, see you guys later. I'm doing this. And I definitely, like, when you find where he is, there were like teenagers, like drinking beer and kind of, just being teenagers in the general area. But it wasn't like, it was pretty mellow,
So no occult rituals or anything like that.
Someone
cult rituals?
A cult.
Oh! I didn't see anything like that. No, but who knows?
Here's my one creepy story about Jim Morrison.
Okay,
and it's not because I knew him or anything, because he long since passed before I was born. Is that I used to frequent the CD vinyl swap meets with my old friend, and he was super into it because he would just always trade like bootleg CDs and stuff. But we had a table next to this woman who was also selling bootleg CDs. And she had like the craziest stories about Jim Morrison, and it was weird because it's almost religious. Like, if you believe in him, and you follow the path he led forth, he will always watch over you. That's it.
Oh,
like,
okay,
really?
Yeah.
You do realize he was like just a head. He was just a front man
rock
for
star.
a band and died from.
No,
yeah. Well, I mean, So it's like going beyond the. I was just a big fan. It was. Like, I believe things that might not be.
It's not even like, oh, I have a Santa. It's like, I guess it's Jesus, like Messiah level weirdo.
Yeah, try watching that Leaving Neverland documentary on HBO, and then saying out loud to anyone who's remotely a Michael Jackson fan that somebody should watch that documentary, and you'll see just how far their people worship goes. It's like,
yeah,
that's into their idols.
I haven't seen that yet. Kind of dragging my feet a little bit.
It's rough, and raw and extremely exhausting and really well made, but I think kind of a bit of a required viewing. I think it's really good.
Maybe I'll watch it tonight.
Further than just anything salacious, it's really just a kind of a drawn out look at childhood abuse and what it means and what it can do to people as adults. And it's not just simply Michael Jackson did this thing. It's way more than that. I really liked it.
Okay. It'll go on the list.
All right.
And
I'll catch up on my other stuff.
And speaking of other stuff, we want to say goodbye to the video watching folks on YouTube. Thank you so much for being with us today. Tom is back tomorrow with David Spark and
Just Robert Young. Woo-woo.
All right. And people on the audio, stay tuned. We got more to tell you about Three Musketeers.
We do?
Musketeers. Yes.
Okay.